Now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, especially on a Monday, because Monday is Pirates Cove Red Shirt Day. I'll explain a little later on what I mean by Red Shirt Monday. Okay, starting out with Demi Cotney. Here we go. This is the Daily News ran, about 4 days in a row now. We've had editorials from the Daily News. Here's how it goes. Our view, more than words to show Guam is safe. We extend our deepest condolences to the couple, to the family of the man who was shot dead during a robbery. The tropical came to this tropical island of white sand beaches for a vacation to celebrate their retirement. It's unfortunate that only one could be coming back home alive. Guam has been and remains a safe place for tourists to visit, elected officials said during a news conference hours after the tourist died from his gunshot wound Friday morning. It's not the public statements or words of government officials about just how safe Guam is that would calm the nerves of anyone taking a closer look since the confirmation of the tourist's passing. What would give real assurance is Guam's action from catching the suspects and prosecuting them to the fullest extent of the law to a year-round prioritization of public safety, not just in the tourist district, but all other villages as well. Besides a tragedy for the wife and family, this fatal robbery shooting also does not bode well for Guam's struggling tourism industry, which has arrivals that are about 40% of what they were prior to the COVID-19 pandemic. Visitors from Korea make up a majority of arrivals to Guam. 59% of our 358,570 of the total 602,594 visitors in fiscal 2023 alone. So almost 60%, Jose, come from Korea.
Wow.
Remembering back in the days when 99.9% came from Japan. Remember that?
Right, yep.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The sooner Guam brings justice to Koreans' tourist family and starts seriously addressing the island's crime problems, the better also for the tourism economy. It's too soon to tell just how this PR nightmare of a tourist robbery shooting would impact arrivals to Guam from Korea and other places like Japan in the weeks ahead. The news spread fast in and outside of Guam as soon as the South Korean Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement about the death of its citizens on Guam Friday morning. So far, the Visitors Bureau offered a cash reward of $50,000 to anyone providing information leading to the arrest and prosecution of the suspects. As of early Sunday morning, no arrests have been made. The suspects are two males, and the Guam Police Department has so far... Two males? How could they possibly have known that?
How dare they?
Did they? They said they haven't caught him yet. If they haven't caught him, they obviously couldn't have asked him. If they didn't ask them, how would they know?
It's a good question.
Yeah. Two males in the police department so far released only a description of the vehicle used in the robbery, an older model of a dark-colored sports utility vehicle. Well, it's the law enforcement authorities' job to catch perpetrators and bring them to justice, anyone who calls Guam home has a responsibility to keep Guam safe. Anyone with information about the robbery and shooting should call the police department. You can also call an anonymous tip the Guam Crime Stoppers, or you can text. There's a number. You can also submit an anonymous tip online at crimestoppers.com. If you know something, say something. It's up to the community to keep justice to the family and for the state of tourism economy to go from bad to worse. Well, there's a little something to add to that, and that is cops are not only supposed to catch criminals, but they're also supposed to have a deterrence effect. At least in theory, if you see a squad car parked beside the highway, you think, I better comply with the speed limit. Otherwise, I'm going to get arrested. If you see a cop walking the beat, you might think, this is not a very good place to do a purse snatching. Now, we used to have a half dozen cops on bicycles down in the Two Bend Beach area.
That's right.
Snazzily dressed in a uniform that sported Bermuda shorts. They looked pretty snazzy. And, of course, the space between the Tsubaki and what's that bar down? Gun Beach?
Beach bar.
Yeah. Man, that's a perfect place for purse snatching.
It is.
It's a wide open road. Mm. There's not a sidewalk to walk on. You got to walk on the sidewalk, so it'd be pretty easy to just come up, pull up right beside somebody, grab that purse, and away you go.
Yeah, awareness is a huge factor. I'm not going to blame the victim for this, but there ought to be some sense of it. There was talk of all this brush needs to be cleared, but you don't want that area to be cleared. You don't want the entire Tumon to be a concrete jungle.
Right.
It's just it's just not a really good place for people to walk, period, because of the low traffic area.
Yeah.
But when I heard it was that area, I was like, whew, whole gang of thieves can hide in that jungle.
How about a lighted sidewalk for openers?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then once upon a time, during Chief Scamby's time, the idea of the koban took fashion. Now, if you've ever been to the Tokyo area, you would understand what a koban is. I called them, until I knew the Japanese word, I called them police boxes, because they're small, square buildings with a sprout of antennas on top and cops inside. And they're in areas that have high volume of foot traffic. So you can just walk up to the koban, and there's a window counter there. You can state your business, and the cops are circulating around that koban all the time. So we built one down in about the middle of San Vittoris, close to what was then the Daiichi, as I recall. And that was a perfect place for a koban, a lot of foot traffic down there. And we put one out by...
Doesn't JFK have one in the front, in that intersection? There's a concrete building there.
That's the Gate Shack.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we built one out by I can't remember the name. They just changed the name of that hotel if you turn left and go the way down to the other end of the tourist area.
Which is on the tip of my tongue, too.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And then they built another one down in Tumon. And then the mayor's got the idea, well, if they've got kobans, we should have a koban too. We should have a koban also. So we built them in just completely impractical places. Like there's one up at the junction of Route 10 and Route 15. If one person walks up that highway every day, it would be a lot. There's no foot traffic there at all. What the purpose of that was, just completely misguided. And now I don't think any of the kobans are functional. But the idea that police can be effective when they're not in cars needs to be revisited.
Are you talking about the Crown Plaza?
That's the one.
Okay.
No, not the Crown
Oh,
Plaza.
that's Daiichi. Yeah.
Yeah,
Former Daiichi.
down on the opposite end. It's not even in the tourist area.
The Hilton?
No, it's
Oh, yeah. Nikko Hotel, Tsubaki Towers is there.
okay. I'm talking about going the other direction.
Oh, okay.
So if you were to drive down,
I'm going to name out one more place near Oka.
okay, yeah,
Formerly known as the Sheraton.
that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah, right down by the Sheraton. You got it.
I don't know what it's called now, but
Yeah, I don't either. They should put theater marquees out in front of these hotels. They change the name so often. Okay, so much for the editorial. No Blue Star today. I've got somebody who wants to comment. If I can get my stack open here.
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah, it's R. Carl. A vote of no confidence. R. Carl wants to cast a vote of no confidence. Go ahead, R. Carl.
Good afternoon, Bob. Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. This last, a few days ago, I walked from Dedido down to Harmon to pick up my car because my son is not on island. He would normally give me a ride. And I never paid attention that much to the trash that's along the side of the road. But I was on the right side of the road, walking along the sidewalk, and let me tell you, that place it's trashed up. And I've seen tourists walking along there, and just the impression that they get. You know, this is on a main thoroughfare. This is along the main road. That thousands of cars pass through, tourists, tour buses, and it just looked awful. And I just never really paid that much attention to it. I knew there was trash there, but try walking there someday, and it's a mess.
Well, I'm very familiar with Carl. I've fetched many a times on the air about Marine Corps Drive from Dedido to Jigo. Rather than looking like the shoulder of our main highway, it looks like a back street to the dump in a third world nation. It's just awful. Now we've got an island beautification task force and the lieutenant governor's in charge of it, but talk about a vote of no confidence. They're just doing nothing. And an island that was serious about tourism, we would not only cut the boonies, but we would make sure the roadsides, quote, looked nice, were pretty. And we have an abundance of opportunities to paint murals, on the concrete abutments that line our highways. Maybe half of them are done and half of those are deteriorated, but you make a really good point, Carl. How can we expect our tourists to really appreciate the island when we use roadsides as dumps, right?
Exactly. We spend millions of dollars on promotions and ads and all this stuff. They come here and then they see it, and the word of mouth just wipes that out. They're going to tell other people, don't go there. It's all trashed up. It's just awful. Besides, somebody got killed. But to me, what we're seeing, with the trash and with this killing and the robberies and the drugs is just a symptom of a breakdown of the nuclear family. We've become a welfare society. Instead of doing things that strengthen the family, the welfare mentality has just caused it to break down. It incentivizes men to abandon their children and incentivizes, people to have too many children. The more children you have, the more public assistance you get. If a household doesn't have a father, they get more public assistance. They've incentivized this breakdown. The whole reason why we have police is because people don't police their own behavior. If you go to a small town, it's got very strong families. They can get by with a sheriff and a few deputies because they police themselves. They police their own behavior.
Well, here's a question for you, Carl.
Sure.
How can we how do we develop a society that emphasizes the building of strong families when we've got a governor who advocates killing members of the family before they even get a chance to be born.
Exactly. That's another way, that they're really badly damaging, if not destroying, the nuclear family. And once the family doesn't convey values, discipline, ambition, patriotism, all these positive character traits to the next generation, things start to fall apart. There was a time not that long ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago, when you wouldn't see all this trash along the side of the road. And, we've had problems, just like any place, but it's just, to me, we're just developing into a welfare society. We're becoming little by little, like a ghetto in the Pacific, and just throwing a bunch of money at it isn't going to solve anything. I badly think we need a part-time legislature, what I prefer to call a focus legislature, because the diminished time available forces them to address critical things instead of horsing around with churning out endless resolutions that don't do anything, and just running around in circles and thinking that represents progress. I badly think we need to go in that direction and start cutting down on their time to horse around and get down to business on critical things. Anyway, that's my view. I appreciate you giving me a chance to rant a little bit.
Well, I couldn't have said it better, Carl. So thank you very much for sharing that. Yeah, we're reaping the seeds that we sowed. Let's make everybody dependent on the government. And you and I have commented so many times on the air, Jose, about when there's a problem, what do? What's the first thing you do? Well, the government.
And he's, it's not just in the families that are breaking down, even responsibility or even this entitlement mentality where our grasses, our lawns are not maintained at the schools because the mayors aren't doing it. There's so many families that send their kids to schools, but it just seems that nobody's able to lift a hand. I'm not trying to denigrate families, but I'm just trying to paint a picture of we keep depending on the government to do everything, and that all of a sudden we forget that we are, in a sense, part of that government wheel where we don't do anything, and neither will this authority that we think is supposed to take over our lives. Same with the roadways. There used to be a time where people would just pick up trash when they saw it. Now they just wait for somebody to do it.
I know a couple ladies who were avid runners who would spend some part of every day out there picking up a couple stretches of the highway. I don't want to mention Lou and Joanne's name, but I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, you shouldn't say Lou and Joanne.
Okay. All right, I got another call coming in here, and somebody else trying to get into the the call. Are we still doing that, Jose?
It seems to be random. Please call back.
He's calling back. Dropping off. Okay, well, I'll go on to the card, and we'll just play it by ear from there. Taking a peek at the card here, of course, we start out with systemic racism, and we go from there to New York, as you were, to the Monica Flores part of the agenda. And then we've got Troy versus the governor, Troy versus corruption, Watts versus Separate, Donna versus Doug, and I got one in here somewhere about the chief also. I thought I did, maybe not. Anyhow, systemic racism. Can we do a picture of Jeff? Yeah, that's Jeff. Jeff is the guy in the tailgater shirt. Jeff and I swapped shirts that day, but there he is standing in front of the bar. It is a bar and restaurant out there on Route 4, Ipan Telefofo. A really one of the nicest places on the island. If you got some leisure time, head for Jeff's Pirates Cove. It's a great place to spend some time. Good restaurant, good bar, good service, friendly people, beautiful beach, ocean view, museum, bookstore, spread on Shoichi Okoye, the last Japanese soldier captured after World War II, 1972. You got a really good chance to shake an howdy with the pirate, just like I'm doing in this picture here. So give it a shot. You'll really enjoy Pirates Cove, especially if you've never been there before. You're missing a rare treat. Okay, systemic racism. I go through this every day. You look at the rice, you see it's orange. But what do people call it? Well, they call it red rice. It's just like me talking about my red shirt on Monday, right? You take a look at my shirt. Is that shirt red? Hell no, it's orange. But I call it red shirt because there is a narrative that the rice is actually red rather than orange. And Paul Zerzan wrote a letter to the Daily News saying, call it by what it really is. It's not red, it's orange. The Daily News came back and smacked him down. Cecile Chargaloff wrote a really nasty letter.
How dare you?
Or did a really nasty Facebook slapping Zerzan down. And Zerzan got canceled. They won't publish his letters to the editor anymore. And this is such a wonderful analogy for what we see going on in local and national affairs all of the time, where someone who actually speaks the truth and tells you what the facts are gets slapped down by the proponents of the narrative. So when you hear me say systemic racism, that's what I'm talking about. Once again, thank you very much, Jeff, for sponsoring that part of the show. Okay, next we've got the Sabina Paris portion of the show. Let's take a break, and then we'll go to Sabina. Jose continues to work with the phone.
Listen up. This is the message that could change your life forever. Registration for the spring 2024 semester at the Guam Community College is now in full swing.
Whether you're a returning student or a newcomer eager to begin a new academic adventure, Guam Community College has something amazing in store for you.
Now getting registered is easier than ever. You can now secure your spot online at guamcc.edu/apply.
You can also register in person at the administration building anytime between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Don't miss out on this opportunity to build your brighter tomorrow.
Guam Community College, the key to unlocking your potential.
Yikes! Are those expensive credit card bills arriving? Well, we can help. Bank Pacific has launched our New Year's Resolution Solution personal loan with annual percentage rates as low as 7.49%. Ready to pay off your credit cards or for whatever you want, starting at 7.49% APR. Apply in person or online at bankpacific.com and come join us. We're still celebrating. Equal credit opportunity lender. Conditions apply. Happy New Year.
And now back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So next is Monica Flores, probably versus the whole island on the card. You'll recall after the Palestinian Hamas broke out of the Gaza Strip into Israel and committed a massacre, murder, infanticide, rape, you name it, a really horrible attack that they fessed up to the New York Times was deliberate, attempting to provoke a overreaction from Israel. It's a terrible thing. And after it was over, there was a legislative resolution to show support for the people of Israel after this massacre. Maneka and her gang, also known as Protehi Latexan, organized a demonstration on the lawn of the legislature, Palestinian flags, the usual placards that follow Maneka around, protesting the legislature doing that, backing Israel, and they did the same thing at the governor's office. Maneka was interviewed by the Post on site. Flores, and this is what the Post said, Flores likened the atrocities in Palestine to what the Chamorro people have gone through. Quote, this is Maneka. The thing is, we are a colonized people in the Marianas and in the Pacific, and we know very well what it's like to be imprisoned, to be forcefully removed from our lands, to be forced to march, to lose our language, to lose our land to eminent domain for so-called national security, and for us to watch it happening, for the whole world to watch it happening in Palestine right now, and watch how the United States government and other Western governments are basically supporting that horrible ethnic cleansing. We're here to demand more of our leaders. Our leaders cannot take that position, and they need to rise up for the Palestinian people.
Wrong.
Yeah, so that's Flores, drawing a moral equivalence between the American regime in Guam, American governments of Guam, and a massacre where Palestinians killed Israelis with carefree abandon. I did get a chance to watch most of the hearings that took place on Friday. Maneka made quite a show, didn't she, Jose? Yeah. She's for the little guy, and she's sticking up for the aquifer. I don't know if you haven't had a chance to watch it. I
haven't yet, but I heard it's a doozy.
It is. Yeah, it's a classic Maneka Flores. So, Maneka, you keep up like this, you're going to get a lot of earned media.
You know, right before we went off the air on Friday, Tim Rohr, who had called in and said he had attended that hearing on the aquifer, he mentioned that right after her rant, she got up and left. And it's, again, indicative of always have to hear what they have to say and don't want to hear what anybody else has to offer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
And that's the same on every level. Is you can't debate him, you can't discuss with him, you can't even have a conversation because it's a total shutdown.
Yeah. Well, in their mind, repressive tolerance. What's his name? Herbert Marcuse, who is one of the members of the 1922 Frankfurt School that brought about what Carl is talking about here, the breakdown of the nuclear family. That was one of their goals. Boy, have they been successful. And Herbert Marcuse, who is one of the heroes of the 60s, people really into the 60s would talk about, Mao, Marx, and Marcuse, as though there were three equals. And he invented the term repressive tolerance. We must tolerate everything that is in line with our agenda, and we must repress everything else. So once you spit out your agenda, there's nothing left to hear. There cannot be another side, another argument. And it looks like Maneka has pretty well got that one under control. Okay, next on the card here is Troy versus the governor. And this ran on Troy's website, Candid News, and it's titled Med Health Contract Under Criminal Investigation Following OPA Audit Evidencing Sweetheart Deal. Now, you get it first at Troy. A couple days later, the media cartel will pick it up. And a couple days after that, the chief of police will tell you what happened from the get-go. Maybe, if he's not too busy making sure nobody's stealing his motorcycle. The governor called it, quote, fake news when the media reported the shady deal in the late 2022. But now a professional independent audit is calling it exactly what the media reported then. The hospital's contract with MedHealth was a sweetheart deal with millions in question. The evidence and allegations are so, quote, real. Attorney General Doug Moylan has confirmed he launched a criminal corruption investigation months ago and that his office was just waiting for the results of the public auditor's audit that published last week before making its next move. According to the audit overseen by public auditor BJ, 1. GMH broke procurement laws to award the contract to MedHealth. 2. MedHealth was unresponsive to the request for proposal that led to the contract. 3. It appeared the entire program was designed to benefit MedHealth. 4. GMH paid MedHealth commissions for GMH and even in other vendors' efforts to collect money GMH would have collected anyway. 5. That created nearly $5 million in question costs, which includes finances involving federal funds. But that was not the full extent of the financial impact to Guam's struggling hospital. During the MedHealth contract period, GMH collected about 20% less of gross patient revenues as compared to the years prior to MedHealth's involvement. So here's how it goes. The narrative is hospital says we're not collecting as much as we should. Let's go out and find a contractor who can help us collect more than what we ordinarily do. They go out and hire a contractor. After they hire the contractor, collections fall by 20%. Explanation: it's just like when you invest money, you buy high, sell low, and make it up in volume. Yeah, looks pretty much like a sweetheart deal, doesn't it? And then in order to bring MedHealth on board, it looks like the hospital had to break every law but gravity. There was a sole source procurement, and then they did a request for a proposal, which is not supposed to follow a sole source. They awarded to the sole source, and it just one thing after another. BJ laid it all out. The audit reviewed the acquisition and performance, this is from the audit, of the revenue cycle management contractor in great detail and noted several deficiencies that warrant further legal review. BJ, in a rare instance where he has made written comments attached to one of his audits, wrote in a news release from the unsolicited offer by a contractor to them being granted professional treatment by submitting percentage-based compensation when the RFP clearly stated a fixed price cap for the initial term, to an unreasonable basis for the contractor building GMH $5 million for the services rendered, to which GMH stated they did not perform. We concluded $4.9 million paid as payable to GMH for the contractor's invoices. And then here's the quote from BJ. What really baffles me in all my years of public service is how the hospital management allowed an unsolicited bidder to receive a multi-million-dollar contract that was non-responsive to begin with. The classic black swan. On November 2, Azure 3, 2022, after Candid broke the story of the contract controversy involving MedHealth, we published the following relevant excerpt from the full story. And they go back. In fiscal 2021, GMH agreed to pay MedHealth 12 cents of every dollar the hospital collects after collecting $7.2 million a month. That $7.2 million threshold was set in contract negotiations between MedHealth and the hospital. MedHealth thus far has invoiced more than $3.4 million, and GMH Administrator Lillian Paris-Posadas has since renewed the contract for another year. But according to GMH's audited financials for 2020, the year before MedHealth contract went into effect, GMH on its own collected $104 million in revenue. That came out to roughly $8.7 million, or $1.5 million more than the threshold for MedHealth, which now collects 12% commissions. How does GMH continue to justify MedHealth contract? And why did GMH agree to set the monthly threshold at 7.2 when GMH on its own collected 104, roughly a monthly average of 8.67? Candid asked GMH legal counsel Jeremiah Luther and spokesman Cindy Hansen nearly 1 week ago. Neither official responded to the inquiry. Candid followed up yesterday with both officials and included Ms. Paris-Posadas in the inquiry. Neither have responded. GMH unilaterally ended MedHealth contract days after that story ran. Luther eventually responded to Candid. Paris-Posadas never did, but she did resign at a public hearing. According to an affidavit of ownership, GMH disclosed to Candid from a FOIA request for documents in late 22, MedHealth was owned by Renee Ramos, Paul Pineda, Paul Pineda, and Glenn Hermes, Hermes, Hermes. Ramos has several multi-million-dollar contracts with both GovGuam and CNMI, including the award of an emergency procurement to house several Government of Guam Department Public Health and Social Services office at his RANCare building in Tamuning. Another audit released by the Office of Public Accountability states that DPHS is now GMH's top renter, spending $2.58 million on rent this fiscal year. Mr. Ramos and his company also contribute thousands to the governor's reelection campaign. So, of course, when you see this, big contributions, lots of government contracts, what's the first thing that pops into your mind, Jose? 3 words: pay to play, right?
Exactly. Okay, can I clarify something? 'Cause I didn't see this in this article. Wasn't part of the controversy that the governor initially signed the contract?
Well, that's what Ken thought.
Okay. So
Ken said he's seen a lot of contracts, and it's usually the agency head, but this time the governor herself.
yeah, but I didn't see this in the article, though, so I would just clarify if that's been verified or not.
Yeah. As previously reported, among the revenues included the formula for MedHealth's cutoff of profits is the garnishment of tax refunds paid to GMH. Then Rev Tax Director Daphne Shimizu said she was not aware of such arrangement, while Ms. Hansen admitted GMH agreed to the inclusion in the format. So they garnish if Joe Sixpack has a tax refund of $1,000 coming back, then the hospital has the ability to file garnishment papers against that $1,000. The money will be paid over to the court and ultimately paid back to the hospital. So because of the contract with MedHealth, the hospital doesn't get to keep $1,000. They've got to give
12%,
$120 to MedHealth for collecting that money.
Just cause. Okay, because the former director, Daphne Shimizu, said that she was not aware of such arrangement, after she's made aware, is there anything that she can do? Does she have anything to do with this?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because when you are served with a garnishment paper, you can contest the garnishment by saying that I don't have the money. That's the basically defense. So there's nothing for me to turn over. Or I'm not in a position, maybe I hold the money in trust or something like that. I'm not in a position to turn it over. But what happens to it after she obeys the writ and sends it to the hospital, that's up to the hospital.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Talk about a sweetheart deal.
The reason why I asked that is because when someone says they were not aware of such arrangements, it makes me think that either they ought to have, or there's some part of the role that they should have been aware of. It should have been said, I have nothing to do with what happens with the money after we garnish.
It would have been, she would have looked better if she'd have said, when served with the writ, I forward the money to the outfit, to the plaintiff in that, or petitioner in that, and I have no control over what they do with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it almost seems like she wants to plead innocent.
Exactly. Well, it's so popular nowadays, Yeah. I didn't want to make anybody look bad. Okay, next part of this article. We have been investigating this matter, and we're awaiting the OPA's report, Doug Moylan confirmed. Our team will be in contact with the OPA now that they have completed their forensic financial review. Cruz's audit alleges several crimes ranging from procurement violations to wire fraud were committed by unnamed parties. All right, let's take a short break and we'll wrap this up when we come back.
Yikes! Are those expensive credit card bills arriving? Well, we can help. Bank Pacific has launched our New Year's Resolution Solution personal loan with annual percentage rates as low as 7.49%. Ready to pay off your credit cards or for whatever you want, starting at 7.49% APR. Apply in person or online at bankpacific.com and come join us. We're still celebrating. Equal credit opportunity lender. Conditions apply. Happy New Year.
Hafa-day, Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
So here we go. The next part of this article is called Sweetheart Deal. The audit discovered GMH tailored its procurement to Med Health in April 2021 to conduct a revenue cycle management services. From May 2021 to November 22. The revenue cycle management, or RCM, is the process of figuring out what is owed to the hospital by whom using medical billing software. It's important, especially to hospitals like GMH, because it isn't something, if something isn't billed on time to the right person or company, the debt becomes uncollectible. The tango between GMH and MedHealth started 2 years prior, though during the first year of the Leon Guerrero administration. What a nice choice of words, Jose, tango. And of course, even remedial math students know the exact number of people it takes to tango.
Dos.
It takes two to tango. And I've seen I've seen tango. I've been to Buenos Aires, Argentina, which is where the tango came from, and it's really stunning. And of course, the body positions of the two tangoers, yeah,
Very close.
very, very about as close as you could get. So the imagery here between
Not to mention the intertwined legs.
exactly a really nice verbal image created by Troy dealing with the hospital and med health. A tango indeed, perhaps inseparable until BJ came along. Well, actually, Ken and I think it was Ken
Harvey Agna.
and Candid News is what separated the two real separation of the two tangoers. Yeah, thanks again, Harvey and Ken. In November 2019, GMH signed a memorandum of understanding with the contractor after receiving an unsolicited offer, as stated therein, for a no-cost assessment of the hospital. Now, even that, Jose, strikes a chord with me, because there's a section of the law that forbids you from making gifts to the government, without the express permission of the governor. And this came up when the Hakobotan folks allowed their building to be used for the governor's media extravaganza for the reparations money, and made a gift to the governor. Remember that? They were barred from government contracting for several years. So you can't just say, I'm a generous person, the government needs this, and give it to them. You got to petition the governor for permission. She has to state the conditions, and it has to all be public. So when they made a no-cost, offered a no-cost assessment, even that jumps out and grabs me by the eyeballs. Guam procurement law and GMH's procurement regulations provide guidelines on the definition and processing of an unsolicited offer. However, there was no evidence that GMH adhered to these regs, and that GMH stated the offer was evaluated through the RFP process, and thus provided copies of evaluation documents for RFP number blank. Despite GMH's deficiencies in following its own procurement regs and procedures for an unsolicited offer, evident by the absence of required documents, GMH signed the MOU with the contractor in November 2019. 1 month after GMH signed the MOU with MedHealth, the public agency attempted to use sole source procurement to hire MedHealth following the no-cost assessment. So here's what we're saying. First of all, MedHealth made a gift to the hospital. We'll come in here and do a free assessment of how you're doing your billing and assessments and things like that. A month later said, we finished our assessment, and guess what? You need to hire us to fix the problem we found.
Why, thank you.
What a coincidence. The OPA cited Guam law, which states sole source procurement shall not be permissible in any procurement arising from an unsolicited offer. That sole source contract was signed by MedHealth Hospital Administrator Paris Posadas, but the contract never went into effect because the Attorney General did not sign off on it. Any contract over $500,000 has to have the AG's signature on the bottom. The OAG told GMH to go through the RFP process instead. Now this is not Doug. This is leaving in January. At first, GMH tried to skirt a procurement law requirement for OAG involvement in the RFP process by attempting to contract MedHealth for $450,000 for 6 months, $50,000 under the threshold. Contract normal periods are normally for 1 or more years. The appearance in this case is that GMH wanted to avoid triggering the procurement law requiring OEG involvement in the RFP if the procurement value exceeded $500,000. Additionally, GMH did not maintain a complete procurement record for this RFP, with notable documents missing, such as the results of the pre-evaluation and final evaluation of the contractor's proposal, the audit states. Then GMH issued the second RFP, which ultimately led to the contract with MedHealth signed by Leon Guerrero. For both GMH's RFPs for RCM services, we found indications of preferential treatment towards hiring the contractor, allowing submissions of percentage-based models after contractor's affiliates request, and after discussion with the contractor RFP and drafting a contract which includes the compensation terms, including the contractor's proposals. Throughout the period of 2 RFP attempts, evidence showed MedHealth pushed for a contingency-based compensation at a percentage rate to which GMH not only capitulated, but its board of trustees knew was being pushed by GMH management. This is according to the audit's discussion. Now, in order to be a responsive bidder, they had to make their fee had to be quoted in an amount certain, not in a percentage. That's what you call, if you don't respond to the terms of the bid, you are a non-responsive bidder. During the audit closeout, and while GMH had the opportunity, its officials argued that MedHealth's unsolicited offer referred to in the MOU did not meet the definition of an unsolicited offer, as GMH stated that the offer was delivered through a presentation to GMH's Board of Trustees. I got to finish this up. I notice I've got somebody in the green room here. That's R. James. So we'll come back after the big halftime show. I'll finish this, and then we'll listen to you, R. James, about GMH procurement. Appreciate your patience.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Congress strikes a 10th-hour deal. I'm Sue Guzman, Fox News. Congressional leaders announcing a $1.6 trillion spending deal that would avert a government shutdown. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson with reaction from the president.
This agreement is for top-line budget numbers only, and it's likely to face fierce opposition from many House conservatives. Still, President Biden celebrating the news on this agreement in a statement saying, quote, "The bipartisan funding framework congressional leaders have reached moves us one step closer to preventing a needless government shutdown and protecting important national priorities."
And the federal government's currently funded through January 19th. The top-line agreement is separate from a supplemental spending request from the White House for aid to Ukraine and Israel. A nor'easter walloped New England this weekend. Fox Weather's Robert Ray is in Worcester, Massachusetts.
We had about a quarter-mile visibility with pretty heavy snow falling and big-time wind gusts. And, that all of a sudden now has turned into that flash freeze scenario as the state of Massachusetts has literally an army of snow vehicles out across the state, fanned across the state, from Boston to here in the central area and any places that has received snow. And what they're trying to do is retreat the roads with the brine, as they've already done the past couple of days.
Parts of New England got more than a foot of snow. Senior Biden administration leaders, top Pentagon officials, and members of Congress apparently unaware for days that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin had been hospitalized since Monday. Pentagon didn't inform the White House National Security Council or top advisor Jake Sullivan of Austin's hospitalization until Thursday. The Pentagon says Austin remains hospitalized. There's no word, though, on when he'll be released. America's listening to Fox News.
Listen up. This is the message that could change your life forever. Registration for the spring 2024 semester at the Guam Community College is now in full swing.
Whether you're a returning student or a newcomer eager to begin a new academic adventure, Guam Community College has something amazing in store for you.
Now getting registered is easier than ever. You can now secure your spot online at guamcc.edu/apply.
You can also register in person at the administration building anytime between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Don't miss out on this opportunity to build your brighter tomorrow.
Guam Community College, the key to unlocking your potential.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
An Israeli raid leads to casualties in the West Bank. Fox's Trey Yanks with the details from Jerusalem.
7 Palestinians were killed and 1 Israeli border officer when the Israelis launched a raid into the West Bank city of Jenin. Now, we understand that during that raid, Israel actually conducted an airstrike in the West Bank against a group of men they say were hurling explosives. Now, a roadside bomb was used to kill the Israeli officer and injure 2 others. Islamic Jihad later claimed responsibility for that blast.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken on a trip through the Middle East trying to prevent the expansion of the Israel-Hamas war. At a news conference in Qatar, he expressed concern for Palestinian civilians.
We have been intensely focused on working to prevent the conflict from spreading. And that is indeed a major focus of what is now my 4th visit to the region since October 7th.
Delays and cancellations piling up at many of the nation's airports.
After airlines were forced to ground their Boeing 737 MAX 9 jetliners this weekend. United and Alaska Airlines both scrapping more than 150 flights today as they wait to hear how to properly inspect the planes. It comes after a plane blew out of an Alaska Airlines a panel blew out of an Alaska Airlines plane shortly after takeoff Friday night. The NTSB is investigating.
Fox's Jackie Ibanez. Christopher Nolan's American epic Oppenheimer dominating the 81st Golden Globe Awards with 5 awards Sunday night, including Best Drama and Nolan for Best Director.
Robert, Killian, my partner in crime of 20 years, Matt, wherever you went, and Florence and Emily, just the incredible work of our amazing crew. So many people to thank.
Audio courtesy of the Golden Globes and Dick Clark Productions. Poor Things pulled an upset victory over Barbie in the Best Comedy or Musical category. I'm Sue Guzman. This is Fox News.
Hafa-day. Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Yikes! Are those expensive credit card bills arriving? Well, we can help. Bank Pacific has launched our New Year's Resolution Solution personal loan with annual percentage rates as low as 7.49% when you pay off your credit cards or for whatever you want, starting at 7.49% APR. Apply in person or online at bankpacific.com and come join us. We're still celebrating. Equal credit opportunity lender. Conditions apply. Happy New Year.
So, big halftime show. Here we are, the second half of Tall Tales this Monday afternoon. I've got R. James, who's been patiently hanging on, so I'm going to go to R. James, and then I'm going to finish up this article from Candid News after we hear from R. James, who's always pertinent, poignant, and never offends the English language. So go ahead, R. James.
Good afternoon, Bob. Well, I don't know. It would appear to me that in an unusual twist of fate, the Attorney General actually did the right thing in this particular case because, you know, the old saying, there is no such thing as a free lunch. And unless it's a non-profit company, nobody undertakes this type of thing for free. I mean, as a no gratis. And that's the reason why, even though the governor, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even if the governor approves a quote-unquote no-cost gift, the AG still has to look at that under the conflict doctrine for, you know, downline conflict of interest, which is exactly what this turned into. They did this assessment. They said, yeah, hey, we know how to fix your problems. Now you need to hire us. Okay, and then there's the whole preferential treatment and the whole thing. And that's generally speaking the reason why, even if somebody offers something for free to the government, there again, unless it's a nonprofit or an NGO or something, it's generally not a good idea to take free gifts from anybody because it's usually a Trojan horse. It's just a way to get your foot in the door.
And if the governor does give permission, that doesn't make the whole transaction bulletproof. That wouldn't stop the Attorney General from taking a look at that and saying, hey, this was pay to play or whatever it was. So, yeah, good point, R. James.
Yeah, correct. And even if the governor had approved it, then the Attorney General, there again, correct me if I'm wrong, but under the conflict doctrine, would have to totally 150% disqualify any further transactions with this provider because it's now, you know, on an island where there's never a conflict of interest, it's now a conflict of interest. Yeah.
True enough, R. James. Good point.
Yeah. Have a good one, Bob.
Thank you for surfacing that, R. James. Yeah. Yeah, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You know where that came from, Jose?
No idea.
Back in the days, you know, in the pre-World War II days of the United States, when you could get a beer for a nickel, a glass of tap beer for a nickel. And in order to promote the sale of their beer, a lot of saloons would offer free lunches. But, of course, you couldn't just come in and eat lunch. You had to come in and drink some beer with your lunch. That's where the saying came from. And it's a truism. Nobody gives you something for nothing.
Anything in life.
So going on or picking up where I left off just before the halftime show, during the audit closeout, and while GMH had the opportunity, its officials argued that MidHealth's unsolicited offer referred to in the MOU did not meet the definition of an unsolicited offer, as GMH stated that the offer was delivered through a presentation to the hospital's board of trustees and not the hospital management. However, contained within the recitals of the MOU is language that MidHealth extended the, quote, unsolicited offer. Both GMH CEO Lillian Paris-Posadas and MidHealth's managing director attested to the truth and accuracy of the recitals, Cruz emphasized in that quote. So their own sworn declaration said this was an unsolicited offer. The public auditor found no evidence GMH followed its procurement regs for unsolicited offer and declared that the attempt to sole source MidHealth was a criminal violation of the law. Next subheading, MidHealth's proposal should never have been accepted. According to the OPA's investigation, the RFP that led to MidHealth's contract specified offerers shall not submit any cost or pricing data with their proposal. There were 2 instances in which MidHealth violated the provisions by providing cost or pricing data in its proposal, the audit states. That means MidHealth was non-responsive to the RFP. Its offer should have been automatically rejected. Yeah. The appointed evaluators, which were the same members retained from RFP number 2-2020, Evaluation Committee did not comment on the appearance of the contractor's non-responsiveness in the opening pre-evaluation or in the final evaluation, the audit states. Since the contractor submitted cost or pricing data with their proposal in violation of the general terms and conditions of the RFP, the contractor should have been disqualified as a non-responsive bidder. The audit does not name who the appointed evaluators were. Doug Moylan, are you listening?
Easily obtained.
Next subhead, GMH paid MidHealth for money it was going to collect anyway. Now, we've pretty well covered that, so I'm going to skip that part. But this last item, we'll allow Doug Moylan to take a victory lap on this last item here. It goes like this. At the time of the MidHealth contract with GMH, the hospital's legal counsel, Jeremiah Luther, enjoyed a relationship with the office of then Attorney General Levin Camacho. That ended in January 2023 when Doug Moylan became Attorney General and almost immediately chastised agencies like GMH for its independence from the OAG. Moylan had been advocating for the legislature to revoke these special privileges, arguing that independently hired lawyers like Luther may sometimes be at odds with the Attorney General, who is the chief legal officer and law enforcer of the government. As part of its response to the OPA presentation, evidence of illegal activity by GMH in the procurement process of a MidHealth contract, Jeremiah Luther, legal counsel for the hospital, submitted a written response. Now, by exclamation, when the auditor does its audit and finds things that it comments on, it will submit the audit to the agency that was audited. Give them a chance to say, we don't agree, you overlooked this, or you forgot about that, or you missed the other thing. Or, good point, we fixed that now. So they submitted it, and Luther responds. And here's how he does it. Jeremiah Luther submitted a written response stating that the procurement process was followed because the Office of the Attorney General signed off on the procurement. At the time of the MedHealth appointment, Luther was deputized representative of the Attorney General. Luther wrote the following, an excerpt from his response. When performing post hoc evaluation of contract resulting from government procurement process, the following principles apply. 1, the Attorney General of Guam's approval as to form and legality carries with it the implicit determination that the procurement process leading up to the execution of the contract complied with applicable law. 2, an executive agency and its administrator may rely on the Attorney General's signature and approval when performing their contractual obligations and when authorizing payments due under the contract. Among the audit's contention, however, is the attempted sole source was for an amount of less than $500,000, did not involve the OAG at all. Luther did not address that in his response. So here's what Luther, apparently this is what BJ is saying Luther attempted. When this shenanigan was going on during the time that Levin Camacho was Attorney General, he had designated Jeremiah Luther as a SAG, Special Assistant Attorney General, assigned to the hospital. So he had the basic authority to act as the Attorney General. So when procurements would come up, the law says if it's over $500,000, the Attorney General must review. Well, if you've got a SAG, he can review it, and he can approve it as to form and substance. Now, chances are he was in it up to here in the negotiation of the contract, right? And then, of course, when the contract comes back to be challenged, who is going to defend it? The same guy. This is just like Green Acres.
This is so circular here.
Yeah, tautological. But even that doesn't work, because when they couldn't get the $500,000 contract through, they dropped it down to $450,000 when the threshold for Attorney General review is $500,000.
Ha ha.
So he was Luther was hoist with his own petard. So, boy, I don't know if Doug can't make something out of this. So, so much for Troy versus the governor. Now, the next.
What's amazing is this is not even like stuff that's well hidden.
No.
It's like right in the open going, I dare you to criticize this.
Yeah.
Wow. And there was a part of the article that mentioned the signature of the governor, I guess, on the final contract.
Yeah. That's
so
right.
that would make her a party to this investigation. Wouldn't you think so?
One would think so.
Interesting.
Yeah, if for nothing else than to get her denials of knowledge on the record.
Of course.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when it comes to credibility and denials of knowledge, like our governor's right up there in the major league.
Because we all sign things when we have no knowledge of anything we're signing.
Exactly. Okay, next is Troy's episode number 8, which Troy says are editorials, and they are so sharp. Some of them, the last couple, are so sharp. He got a blue star on the last one. So here's Troy Talk episode 8. The last administration got away with it. Don't let this one get away too. Some of you despise Lilian Guerrero and mistakenly believe her party, the Democrat Party of Guam, has a monopoly on corruption. Well, I wouldn't wage a bet against your contention Ms. Leon Guerrero's administration has allowed corrupt people to steal from taxpayers I will say the Democrat administrations dare graft because Republicans got away with it. I'm not saying all Republicans and Democrats are corrupt, but I'm saying both parties have grown, supported, promoted, funded, defended by corrupt people. Both parties have sat idly by as their titular heads and their appointees in power conspired with their elite friends to squander public resources to benefit of the few. Now, this is quite a mouthful for a guy who was Governor Calvo's spokesman for quite some time. Both parties have been silent when the police and the state they control have overstepped and abused their power. Pay raises for public employees always are okay for the party in power until that party is no longer in power. Then pay raises are payoffs for the election. No one will write a book about Guam politics because it will be the same 2 chapters and 5 verses on repeat. Boring, far from thoughtful, meaningful, or purpose-driven, just unsophisticated corruption that only very few people are willing to do something about. The latest insinuations and allegations by Public Auditor BJ that Guam Memorial engaged in a multi-million-dollar fraudulent conspiracy with a company with close ties to Governor Leon Guerrero simply is the latest in decades of corrupt practices. How often have those with the means and the power to do so dug deeper than the surface of these revelations to find the direct links of the conspiracy to the man or woman sitting atop Adaloo's throne? Thank goodness for Doug Moylan. At the very least, this issue may likely find itself in a criminal court setting only because the voters elected the right man for the right time. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. He didn't call.
No, sir.
Wow, repeat must not be listening today.
Or he's experiencing a conversion.
Maybe. Because what was this issue to Adaloo prior cruise audit and the selection of Moylan? Quote, fake news is what the governor's spokeswoman called the media reports of the scandal in October 22 when Candid broke this story. Why does the governor's office get to be so arrogant and dismissive about a deal with so many strings and filthy fingerprints on it? The answer is obvious. It's because the last guy got away with it all. Leon Guerrero is not the first governor to known or even engage in corrupt acts in her administration, and this MedHealth scandal isn't prosecuted along with savvy legislative oversight of the issue. She won't be the last. Well, I'm going to have to take some disagreement here with Troy. Okay. I'm going to have to disagree with Troy, and then I'm going to get to repeat, who's not as quick on the dial as he used to be. But I think the reason, if an administration is corrupt, it goes back to Governor Ricky Berdallo, who publicly confessed to taking what had to be viewed as a $10,000 bribe, who was prosecuted by the feds, found guilty in a criminal trial in order to avoid going off-island to a federal prison the day before he was to leave, committed suicide. And what were his just desserts? You go down to Adaloof, you'll find a governor's complex named after him and a large statue right out on Marine Corps Drive. Is this the way to discourage government and to discourage corruption in government? No, folks, this is not the way to do it.
again, this is going to make me a bad guy, but I wonder if 20 to 30 years from now, there will be a movement to topple statues and rename buildings like they've been doing for other people.
Well, you only do it for people who accomplish good works.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I think Ricky's safe. And, there have been hints, whispers, whistleblowers in other administrations, but they all got off scot-free. So if there's no disincentive, never overlook the power of the quick and easy buck. There's an article in the Pacific Island Times that I'm going to bring in tomorrow that kind of ties into this with the administration before the current one. But let's Santa Claus is not the only one who likes fireworks. And I'm going to push my fireworks button right now. Okay, go ahead. Fireworks, repeat.
Yeah, I'm sorry I was getting in my truck when I heard you talking about it. I want to reserve, on this latest one about the hospital, I want to reserve judgment until it all comes in because, like the Ike Santos situation, apparently the guy has a pretty good case to defend himself. So I don't know. Of course, you're hearing one side of the story here. I do know that the last time Doug was AG, he got convictions out of, I think, 4 out of 20 corruption cases he brought. So he got some convictions, but 4 out of 20, that's not a very good batting average. When you prosecute, you should win every single case.
That's what we're looking for, isn't it, Pete?
Yeah.
And the game is so stacked in favor of the prosecution. Sometimes you think that the prosecution really has to try hard to lose, right?
That's been my sense.
Well, thanks for shedding a little light on that, and we will do that. We'll reserve and see how it goes. Unlike the Bar Association, who tried and convicted Joe Guthrie, and they're now out looking for the sour apple tree, the branch of which they will hang him from.
Well, I was trying to get him to give us a CLE on free speech over at the PDSC's, the Public Defender's Christmas party that we had just this past weekend. He was otherwise encumbered. He couldn't make it.
He didn't do it, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good talking to you again,
thanks,
Pete.
Uncle Bob.
So long.
Oh man, that was a sparkler.
Yeah, it was.
Next time, repeat.
Yeah, I want next time. The ones back in my youth when fireworks were legal for a little while, the real powerful one was the Whistling Devil.
Oh.
It was black, cone-shaped. You lit it and ran like hell.
Oh, no kidding.
And I don't know how they made it do that, but a flame would come out of the top and it would whistle. And then, whoom! Those things had power.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, another trick we used to do, we'd find Coke bottles, light a firecracker, and drop it in the Coke bottle.
Did those.
Fun with fireworks.
Yeah, I can detail some of the stuff I did with my cousins, like running away from bottle rockets, but that's another story.
And then every 4th of July, there'd always be some poor unfortunate that would be playing with a sparkler. And you know how the sparks come off? And you can hold your hand right in the sparks. The sparks don't hurt. And the kid would grab the sparkler, and that's something like burning magnesium. And that is really, really hot.
White hot, they say.
White hot, yeah. Okay, so much for fireworks. Next, we're going to Dave Lotz versus Separati. But we're going to go to Wrigley Field first.
Are those expensive credit card bills arriving? Well, we can help. Bank Pacific has launched our New Year's Resolution Solution personal loan with annual percentage rates as low as 7.49% when you pay off your credit cards or for whatever you want, starting at 7.49% APR. Apply in person or online at bankpacific.com and come join us. We're still celebrating. Equal credit opportunity lender. Conditions apply. Happy New Year.
Hoffa-Day. Alex Dimapon here from Security Title. Title reports, escrow forms, signatures, statements, and title insurance. When it comes to buying, selling, or refinancing your property, we do it all for you. At Security Title, we enjoy watching your dreams come true and being the ones to make sure it happens just as you planned. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Okay, so here we are at Wrigley, and next on the card is Lotz versus Separati. Now, Dave Lotz is really writing against type here. Ordinarily, Dave Lotz, good man, done some really good work here on the island. He was probably one of the best, if not the best, director of Parks and Rec we ever had. He went to work for the National Park Service, done a lot of good things. Takes people on boonie stomps all over the island.
He knows his trails and off trails.
He certainly does. But he kind of tends to be an environmental wacko.
Just a little, just a lot.
Yeah, just a lot. You know, he's right over there. And a lot of the stuff he writes about doesn't fit in very well with the conservative frame of mind. But he's writing against type today, and he makes a whole lot of sense.
He's a very humorous guy. Got to give that to him.
Uh-huh. Got to. And he writes against type today, and I think he sheds a whole different light on this talk about political status, sheds a different light on the entire discussion that causes me even to see it in a little different light.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And here's what he says. He says, there is considerable relevance of our government's experience in relation of any quest to change in the political status of Guam. Many of us shy away from any political change in political status, simply because of the potential that a change towards more local control will not benefit the people of Guam in their daily lives. Now, when you listen to Bavacqua and Maneka and all of these others, it's not that they're for something, it's just that they're against an awful lot of stuff. And they really aren't talking much about our daily lives. And there have been times when I've said that, you know, the activities of my village mayor have more impact on my daily life than the activities of the President of the United States. But I don't say that anymore because my village mayor doesn't do squat. But anyhow, going back to Dave here, change toward more local control will not benefit the people in their daily lives. Witness the ongoing debacles regarding the conditions of our schools, the unreliability of our power, and the condition of our hospital, while the government cannot even maintain a swimming pool. Many that are frustrated even now advocate the taking over of essential public services by the federal government. How many times have we heard Vince Akimoto, can't we put the hospital in a federal receivership? And of course, it happened with our wastewater system. It happened with our dump. It happened with our Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. And when it happens, you don't find an awful lot of, a lot of crying towels are not in demand downtown. It's more like about time. Ask yourself this, would the dump have ever been closed were it not for a federal agency called the Despicable Environmental Protection Agency? And even then, even when we had a gun to our respective heads, we wouldn't do it. Francis Gatewood had to declare the receivership and appoint an off-island contractor to come in and do what we should have done 25 years sooner. So you can understand, Dave's making some really strong points here. He said, hardly a step towards a change in political status where we would be more responsible for our government services and less reliance on the federal government. He's talking about the federal government taking over public services. The politicalized discussions regarding the future locations for medical facilities has yet to discuss what medical services will be available on Guam. We have failed to provide any semblance of sound planning regarding the services and facilities for our future health care. Translating this to future political status, it just does not provide any encouragement that an improved political status will improve the quality of health care and our life on our island. But there are politicians who provide a blanket statement that support the military buildup of our island. Such statements essentially willingly yield any control that we have of our future to the U.S. Department of Defense. Then these same politicians go to the United Nations to complain about Guam being a colony and just do not realize their contrary position. An essential component of an improved political status should be to move toward self-confidence in our ability to provide good public health services for the people, along with more self-sufficiency for the island. However, our actions are often contrary to that, as we sell lands to foreigners, serve as advocates for luxury hotels and condominiums that are not meant for us, and turn land into warehouses and coral pits that in reality do not serve our best interests. We should be ensuring a valuable, sustainable land use for our future and agriculture and our renewable natural resources, both on land and sea. We need to ensure that our current actions are consistent with broad, long-term overall goals for the people and any future change in political status. A little different for Dave Lotz. Now, I think he kind of reverted to type at the end of his column, but he laid a nice foundation there. Next, I've got KUAM versus the chief, but I've got a couple folks in the green room that want to get on. I've got Frenchie, who has an update on Taiwan, and Chris Duenas, who wants to talk about the infrastructure in Gov Guam.
Senator Chris is a little more entwined to what you're talking about on Lotz.
He certainly is. So we're going to go with Chris first, and then I'll squeeze Frenchie in about Taiwan after Chris. Tell us about it, Chris.
Up a day, Your Honor. I want Frenchie in, so I'll dispense of my usual niceties. But the reason why I called is I will send the release from my office to you on the latest of what happened during the buckle on 17537 and Moneca. I know I already sent you the testimony and criticisms about the little people, but the one thing that Dave Lotz hit so hard on here, and my release basically today was, why hasn't the Guam Waterworks Authority and EPA demanded that over 1,900 homes that are currently within 50 to 100 feet of sewage services, how come they haven't demanded for those to be hooked up to the sewage system? And they're trying to demean all of these individuals who just simply want to have a Type 4 system and build a home on their small property. Probably wouldn't even number in these 2,000 homes over the next 5 to 10 years, but they want to place the blame. And this is exactly what Dave Lotz is leading to. Our government is so ass backwards on how it treats people and treats its enforcement. When you have, and not only that, we raise rates for our people when over these 2,000 homes, if they were connected to these sewer systems, would generate revenue for the Guam Waterworks Authority, and EPA has not even impressed on Guam Waterworks. Get these homes on sewer systems now. Your Honor, there is over $14 million now, from what I understand, in the systems development account that they have been charging towards the people. Even funding is not an issue anymore. So we talk about how we want independence. We talk about how independent individuals advocating for independence have never even talked about a form of government. Would it be a tripart government? Would it have rule of law? Would it have a judicial system? Would it have a legislature? Would it have a governor or a monarch? And we, once again, as his great article in Jungle Watch, the real oppressor is our own government against our own people. 1,900 people, Your Honor, who are just a stone's throw away from sewer systems are not mandated to hook up to that. Yet we're talking about San Jose and Santa Maria, who have a quarter-acre lot, who are just trying to build a home, and they're willing to put a Type 4 system in. But we say no to them. But we say yes to everybody else continuing to supposedly pollute the aquifer with a septic system when they have sewer available. It's unconscionable.
Do you think the McNinch rule plays a part here, Chris? The McNinch rule being a column he wrote saying that a small group of loudmouths have got the legislature code because they don't want to cross them. And that would be Moneca. Moneca's sticking up for the aquifer and is against everything else.
Well, and I say that in truth because they use this opportunity to benchmark that against the federal government. The federal government's been the bane of our existence. They've taken our land. Yet the reason why I was so irritated towards EPA and Weary and all the presentation, they made a presentation of a worst-case scenario, Your Honor, where they put a density of over 1,800 homes within about 2 or 3 square miles, and they showed what it would do to the aquifer if on a septic system, and they said those homes would possibly be 1/8 of an acre lot to be putting a septic system. First of all, you can't even put a septic system on 1/8 of an acre. And I challenge the presentator by saying, you have presented no mitigation. You have not. Why wouldn't Waterworks storm into that area and say, you must hook up to the sewer system because you need to be customers of ours? And who in their right mind would even do a development like that? And besides, the development law, like Gina Campos stated, is totally different from what is proposed in our bill. Once you go beyond 4 or 5 lots per acre, you are now in a different class. It was all set up, Your Honor, and you're right. Those people only use fear, intimidation, and they try to keep the public under control because the fact that, oh my God, my water is going to be polluted because Tamaria and San Jose and their kids want to build a house with a Type 4 system. but they do it under the guise of that kind of government control. When you marshal all the resources of the government to come down and basically condemn something, but they won't even take care of the basic obligations that they have. And you'll see it in my release tomorrow. 2,000 homes. We wouldn't even build 2,000 homes. It's 10 years on any of these lots. Yet EPA and GWA lets these things go unabated and doesn't tell them you must hook up. And they got millions of dollars in their account to make them do it. It's unconscionable, Your Honor, and it is exactly what you're talking about.
Back to the McNinch factor. Do the Manecas of the island, do they actually call members of the legislature? As, for example, the Israel resolution and Maneca's testimony against your bill, are some members actually called going through this process? You know, maybe I shouldn't go there because I'm going to have that whole Texan crowd down on my butt, and I don't want to do that. Does that happen?
I totally believe that. Maneca, and you could see, I hope the legislative video would show it. She not only left, she got up and stormed out and walked only over to the committee chair and the committee chair to say thank you and ran out of there. Yet whenever they got something up for hearing, they sit there with their entire group and their signs and everything else behind it and say, you know what, if any senator leaves here, we're going to notate that they left and whatever. But yet they cannot stand it when 98% of the testimony is against what they're talking about. It is a sham, Your Honor, and I'm glad you gave me an audience.
You know, the last time I went to a public hearing, I saw her sitting. I was at the end of the table, and she was near where I was on the end, not behind the microphone of the person who would be testifying, but she was actually the director. There were 3 other people that would hold up signs, and then she would wave them and motion them who to come forward, which, you know, just like the director of a TV serial or something like that.
Your Honor, it's the same MO as what we see nationally whenever we go into protest against something within a conservative, a congressperson or senator's hearing. It is rehearsed. Some of these people are paid to do this, and it's just jacked up. And I had to tell you this because I guarantee you will know, and you will see during my, about my release, as the fact is, you want to go after somebody, go after those who are not even pushing to make sure that we protect our environment, as opposed to those who are just trying to live.
One more thing here on sewers. I remember back in the 60s, the government did push the installation of sewers in a lot of neighborhoods. If you were to drive up San Vittorio Street in Barragata, you would know that they installed a sewer there way back in maybe 67 or 68, and you can tell because the road is such a mess. You could tell exactly where the sewer was laid. But all those houses were connected to the sewer. Now, on the one hand, the free lunch is repugnant, but on the other hand, polluting the lens is also repugnant. And I think that the possibility of polluting the lens is far more repugnant than the idea of installing sewer systems to places that need them without cost to the homeowner. Something we ought to pursue, don't you, Chris?
Absolutely. And John Duenas from, of course, the very prominent RE/MAX and his company was the one who pointed to this. This is not pie in the sky. This is GWA's own report. And it's like I said, it's unconscionable to think that they haven't basically, first of all, used that $13 million system development charge, which Chris Felix agreed with me completely, that they should push to have these things connected, even if it's subsidized. But think about this, Your Honor. That's revenue to the department. I don't know about your bill, but I believe on my bill right now, I'm hooked to a sewer system in one of my places, and it's $40 a month.
Yeah.
That's $500 a year just for my house. Can you imagine that times 2,000 homes?
Well, building a sewer system is one place where the market doesn't work very well. You don't have the option of choosing between 2 or 3 sewer systems. you hook up to the one that the government built, or you don't have one. And so this is one area, I think, where the government has to move in and do what must be done. And I'd say building a sewer system is something that must be done. Now, we can be a little bit more careful where we allow people to build, but for places like what did you say, 1,800 that you mentioned? 1,800?
All of these homes are in this study are within 50 to 100 feet of available sewer. We're not talking, Your Honor, we're not talking about running, miles and miles of lines in these homes. These are individuals who could hook up, with post haste. We're not talking about people who are miles away from a system.
Yeah. Okay, Chris. Well, thanks a lot for bringing that up to our attention. We'll be looking for your release tomorrow. Okay, we're heading for Churchill Downs. I'm hoping that Frenchie lost. We lost contact with Frenchie. I'm hoping Frenchie calls back to bring us up to date on Taiwan.
Listen up. This is the message that could change your life forever. Registration for the spring 2024 semester at the Guam Community College is now in full swing.
Whether you're a returning student or a newcomer eager to begin a new academic adventure, Guam Community College has something amazing in store for you.
Now getting registered is easier than ever. You can now secure your spot online at guamcc.edu/apply.
You can also register in person at the administration building anytime between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Don't miss out on this opportunity to build your brighter tomorrow.
Guam Community College, the key to unlocking your potential.
Yikes! Are those expensive credit card bills arriving? Well, we can help. Bank Pacific has launched our New Year's Resolution Solution personal loan with annual percentage rates as low as 7.49%. Ready to pay off your credit cards or for whatever you want, starting at 7.49% APR. Apply in person or online at bankpacific.com and come join us. We're still celebrating. Equal credit opportunity lender. Conditions apply. Happy New Year.
So here we are in the home stretch at Tall Tales. We're at Churchill Downs in Louisville. I go 6 furlongs across the finish line. I'm done for another Monday. I'm peeking at Facebook here, and here's what Harvey Agnes said. I have a copy of the contract with MedHealth, and it's signed by Governor Leon Guerrero and Levin Camacho. So Levin did send, it wasn't Luther, it was Levin that signed off on it. So, Luther makes a good point when he says, when the Attorney General says he approves it as to form and legality, that creates at least a rebuttable presumption that the administration of the hospital can rely on it. That being the case, what happened here? Was Levin so inept that he missed all the stuff that BJ saw? Was Levin visually impaired at the time? Did Levin assign it to a subordinate who didn't do a good job and Levin just signed off? Will Doug Moylan be looking at Levin Camacho with respect to any criminal conspiracy?
Now, the contract is a contract. The people who sign the contract are usually the parties that are responsible for the stipulations within that contract. Luther, as the attorney for GMH, who was a recipient, I guess, of what happens in the contract, reviewed a lot of stuff. How much of what happened that's not legal is he responsible for, even though the Attorney General, Levin Camacho, had signed the contract?
Probably nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if anybody has a right to rely on it, you'd think it'd be counsel who, in effect, reports to the person who did the certification.
Even if it Because I'm looking at where the the auditors said they didn't even follow the legalities of their, they didn't follow the policies of their procurement regulations.
Yeah. This gets you into, you've heard me talk about my lawyer's toolkit. This gets you into that one where there's a pocket calculator that has an algorithm in it that will allow you to determine how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. Or the one the knife that's so sharp you can split hairs with it. Yeah, this could be very, very interesting.
And messy.
Yeah, well, I guess we lost Frenchie. I've got a one here, KOM versus the Chief, but I've got, 3 minutes to go? Yeah, I think maybe instead of starting it, not being able to finish it, I'll just take a cruise through Facebook here and see who's on board today. The first post I look at, Lonnie Salas said, "I believe it's closed." I wonder what's closed. Oh, the hotel you and I were trying to figure out the name for. Yeah, Sheraton. And then Bunker Mano says it's now called the Laguna Bay. And then we go on to Rico Blancafort's here. And Jose Martinez tells us Sheraton is now the Royal Laguna. Raymond McGravy is watching from North Dakota. Raymond, I hope you're watching season 5 of Fargo on FX. I don't know if you ever get to watch that kind of stuff, Jose. But
I've seen the movie, but I haven't watched the series yet.
Yeah, well, there's a movie. It was a great movie. And then a serial, and it's in its 5th season, and it all ties back to the movie, but it's not the same characters, not the same plot. The theme is kind of the same. The theme is that often evil people can draw good people into bad things. That's kind of what it's all about. And it's the Coen brothers. That tells you an awful lot right there.
Great filmmakers.
Yeah. Let's see, we've got Rico Blancaflor, Raymond McGravy, Lonnie, old faithful Lonnie Salas, who cheers on our Carl, Lonnie Salas, Bonnie Suba. Bonnie Suba says the problem with throwing money at the agency is it's also useless. Money goes to the directors and staff, not to the working group and equipment. And Lonnie Salas says, painted Jose Martinez. You must have been painting word pictures, Jose.
I might have been using broad strokes.
The Brendan Fausto is on board. And it's time to say goodbye to our president. Let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3. HD3.
Trying to avoid another government shutdown. I'm Ted Lindner, Fox News. The deal has been reached, reportedly on Sunday night. Fox's Lucas Tomlinson with the details.
Congressional leaders say they have reached an agreement on a top-line budget that keeps the government funding for 2024. Again, these are just top-line numbers. This is not a final deal yet, and does not include the supplemental bill that would strengthen the southern border and provide money for Israel and Ukraine. This bill will likely face opposition from conservatives in the House.
And that there, Fox's Lucas Tomlinson. The nearly $1.6 trillion includes $886 billion for defense and $704 billion for non-defense. Criticism continuing to be leveled at Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin for not telling the White House he was hospitalized last week.
Secretary Austin has been hospitalized following complications after an elective surgery. However, the White House, National Security Council, and Congress were never told he was in the hospital. Oklahoma Republican Senator James Langford said on Fox News Sunday